Welcome to Immigrants Unplugged. I'm your host, Saul Gomez, and this podcast is all about sharing the real and inspiring stories of immigrants in Canada. Today, I'm excited to sit down with my good friend Daniel Cummins, an Australian who moved to Canada for love and family. Dan shared his journey of settling in West Kelowna, navigating cultural differences, financial challenges, and becoming a proud Canadian citizen. Beyond his immigrant story, we'll explore his passion for coaching basketball for young girls, including his daughters, and how he's creating a positive impact in the community. Dan also shared his hopes for better sport facilities in the area to support young athletes. This episode is about perseverance, community connection, and the joy of giving back. Let's jump into it. Hi, Dan. Thank you for coming today to Immigrants Unplugged. It is a pleasure to have you in my studio and the house. Finally, you're sitting down here. How you doing?
Doing real good. Thanks for having me.
I know we've been friends for a while. Our kids, they really connect very well. They got a good energy. You're a dad of two girls. And my wife loves you and loves your wife as well. So I think it was a very good moment for me, especially when I'm working in this type of project with podcasts, kind of like to highlight that you also an immigrant. You're coming from Australia.
Yeah, I know. It's actually interesting how I kind of ended up here, and probably would have never thought I would end up in Canada. There was probably no reason for me to end up in Canada besides falling in love with my Canadian wife. I would never have thought it to move to another country. Why would I? So I live in a pretty nice place, a part of the world. And it wasn't on my radar to end up in Canada, but it happened.
I'm glad you mentioned this because I want to start like that way, right? Is that what drew you to move to Canada or settle in Canada with your family? Because love or?
It's a bit of both. I mean, we've tried both countries out and it was kind of not really planned maybe to come back here. It was kind of like Steph was on a holiday and I didn't come and I was just sitting at home looking at real estate, funny enough, in Canada, and actually found a really good deal on a house over here, which was probably like half the price of an Australian house at the time. It was a foreclosure home. And I was like, hey, Steph, like while she was on holidays, do you want to go and have a look at this house? And she's like, what? I'm on holidays. I don't really want to look at a house. And I'm like, but it's a really good price. So I had no idea how to purchase a house while I was living in Australia, but it ended up working out and we ended up just buying it. And then we ended up renting it out for probably a good 6-7 years before we decided to come back. We've got to do something with this house. We've either got to sell it, come back to Australia or, stay here. And so we come back in 2018 and I guess our mind hadn't been totally made up yet. And funny thing happened, COVID, and kind of made our decision to kind of settle here because we couldn't really go back to Australia and flights were so expensive during that period for a couple of years. And now I've got comfortable living here. It does take it is a transition, right? Like, trying to figure things out and am I comfortable here? And it takes time. And I've been here 6 years now and it's actually my second time living here, but it's probably started to slowly develop maybe in the last year or two where I'm actually more comfortable being here and not thinking about going home as much as I used to.
Okay, so this is not new for you. You came here before, and now the second time you've been settled for 6 years now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Is both of your daughters born here in Canada?
No, both of them actually born in Australia. So, So we have citizenships for both countries now, which is pretty cool. So the kids have a kind of a easy, way if they want to go back to Australia and study, and it's going to be easier for them and stuff. Yeah.
Nice. And I want to talk about your recent trip you did to Australia with the whole family. And also, I want to also understand and learn more about this culture. I will say culture, because even when Canada, Australia speak English, I bet it has to be something different. And mostly the people who's going to be watching this, immigrants or Canadians, especially immigrants, they won't be thinking like, just because you speak English, everything's gonna go smooth.
Yeah.
But I bet you find difference in cultures. What will be one of the biggest surprises you find out?
There's a few things. And I mean, I feel like wages, the overall differences for probably more low mid-income people is probably a little bit higher in Australia. for doing certain jobs than it is in Canada. I had a pretty good job when I was in Australia. I was working at the airport, and when I had to give that job up to come over here, big city, probably easier to get jobs. And West Kelowna, it's only about 30, 40,000 people. So either you drive over the bridge to Kelowna, which I didn't really want to do. I wanted to stay on this side of town. So my first job I took up was kind of like an entry level job. And I'm, man, what am I doing here? Like, it's this wage. How can I live off this wage here? And I stuck that job for 3 months. And I guess one of the things I struggled to grasp with was the fact that penalty rates don't really exist for shifts here. And working on Saturday and Sundays, for example, also, in Australia, you would get time and a half on a Saturday, double time on a Sunday. And during the week, you would get a percentage, like working an afternoon night shift. And here it seems like it's just typically maybe $1 extra an hour for working afternoon or a night shift. In Australia, probably making maybe $4 or $5 more an hour to work that shift. So, coming to that reality, I'm like, I was thinking straight away, we're going to have to move back to Australia. I can't afford to live here. And then, so anyway, I persevered, and I've been like kind of in the trucking industry all my life, and had my tickets in Australia, my licenses to drive truck. So I can't do that in Canada. I have to actually sit the test again. So it took me a few years to get back into the, truck driving, and finally got my license. And then my wage gradually went up, and, that made a big difference. But for a good 2 years there, I was on a pretty low wage, and it wasn't making me happy. But now I'm probably back to where similar to what I was in Australia. So it's hard being an adult and kind of getting, it seems like a kid's wage to start off with to me when you come to Canada, and really have to build on that again and prove yourself again. So that was a very difficult challenge for me when I first arrived here. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it in, because, there's moments that I feel exactly the same way. But as a dad, it's good that you mentioned like the wages though.
Yeah. And you have to persevere. You got a family, right? You can't give up. There's no give up mentality. I've got to do this for my family, get my family ahead. So that's where my mentality was with that. I just got to try harder to get to where I want to get to. And that's what I did. And you the same as well.
Yeah, we got to pay bills, and it's not really cheap to be living here in this province though.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for bringing it in. Another big, I say, milestone, it's like you just became Canadian.
Yes.
You obtained your citizenship just a few months ago. And for us Latinos, it's been more than a milestone. It's very emotional though.
Yes.
I bet for you it's a big achievement. How was for you the process going through all of this?
The process is not too bad. It probably takes a year for it to all happen. I feel like, I needed to get it for the family. It just makes it easier for us for travel and stuff like that. And that's kind of nice, that we're all Canadian, we're all Australian. I'm not left out of that, not being Canadian. And 3 of my family members are, my 2 kids and a daughter are Canadian, and I'm not Canadian. So it didn't make any sense for me not to get it.
Yeah. And how was your experience now coming back from your recent trip from Australia to Canada?
Yeah, it was really good. You do notice little differences. And I guess I have to bring up the tip thing, right? We don't tip in Australia. And I definitely do notice when you go out to eat, the customer service is way better. People are way more friendlier, maybe because they want the tip. I don't know. But I just found that just seemed like, when you're going into the hospitality in Australia, just people, I'm not saying everybody, but I just noticed this unhappiness in the workers, right? Because we don't tip. They're not like trying to get your attention, not to trying to make you happy. They're just doing a job. I find when you eat out in Canada, they just put that little bit extra and, ask how your day is and, have a chat with you. And that is a big difference, I find, right? I do enjoy that when you go out. You want a good experience when you go out to eat and to be happy. And I just think the Canadians make that a little bit extra to make their customers happy than what you do when you go out to eat in Australia. So that was definitely a big difference that I noticed while I went back, for sure.
What was going through your head when you officially became Canadian?
I'm just like, it was just kind of a relief to get it done, you got to go every 5 years to get a permanent residency card anyway, right? So it was coming up to that time where I had to apply, and it's like, do I need to do this every 5 years, or should I just get it done? And yeah, I think it was just great. It was just great for the family to celebrate us all being Canadian, and it kind of feels like I'm getting a little bit more Canadian and starting to learn the Canadian way. Like, I just find that people over here, and I don't know if it's coming from Brisbane, it's like a big city and everyone's rushed. And then I'm coming to a smaller place here in West Kelowna, and it just seemed like everyone's more friendly and willing to make new friends. Like in a big city, it's kind of harder. People are spread out, living in different areas. And here everyone's closer together. It ain't a big area, right? So you run into people way more than you do in a big city at the shops, right? Sometimes I go to the shops and I'm running into 3 or 4 people and having a conversation. And even the wife goes to the shop and said, "Where have you been?" I've just run into 4 or 5 people and taken me an extra an hour to go grocery shopping. And I don't really find that happens that often when I go to the grocery store in Brisbane, like run into people like that and can have that chat. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it is because people are more spread out there, I find, and we're all like in this little tight knit community here, which is really good. So I've never had that experience before.
I would like to be jumping to a topic, and one of the things that I admire, and I told you before, it's about the time that you got for coaching. For the people that don't know, you've been coaching a basketball team with young girls, and even you've been coaching your girls, even in the rain though. Is that something that just happened or is something you had planned to do?
I think Australia is very a sporting culture, right? And so I've grown up with a lot of different sports, and I've done Australian rules football and been doing that since I was 8 years old up until I was probably like 26. And I've always had a passion to be able to coach. And obviously I can't coach Australian rules football here in Canada because it's pretty much non-existent. And my second passion was always been basketball since I was about 11 and 12. I had a couple of friends that were Filipino back in elementary school, and I think that's their national sport, basketball, and they got me into it when I was about 11 or 12, and I thank them for that because it's a great sport. And so I've always had that on the radar as a backup sport on the off season. I'd always go and do a little bit of basketball. And and I just saw this opportunity here in West Kelowna that there's pretty much non-existent basketball here. And I'm like, man, it's really interesting to me that like basketball got invented in Canada, and maybe it's bigger back on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast. I don't know, but it seems, there was nothing going on here in West Kelowna. I just saw, and I wanted my kids to do a team sport. I'm not a fan of soccer, so I didn't really want to go and do that. And it was just a good opportunity to try and get my kids into a team sport. So I had to start it from scratch, which has been challenging because I'm very passionate about it. And there's a couple of other passionate people here on the West Side, and we've actually started to grow it. But the harder one has definitely been the girls' side to increase the numbers in female participation. We were successful last year. We had 16 girls on the West Side between grade 4, 5s and 6. And this year, not so good. We've gone to 11 players this year. We're going to try some new things in spring to see if we can get some more participation. And I think it's a really good sport to, teach kids at a young age to learn teamwork and discipline. And that's working really good so far. So hopefully good things come in spring.
It's funny, the case, like how do you start interested in other things like, that is not really in the culture that other people or immigrants actually bring that to you in your own country. And now you become an immigrant in this country and you bring it that your skills or unique experience, to especially young kids.
Yes.
And why to be working with young kids?
I just guess because I've got 2 young kids myself, right? So it's a big passion now to, help them on their journey. And I find it really good to be involved in it too, right? And be part of it. And I feel like, it's kind of sad. A lot of parents drop their kids off and just think it's time for themselves. But I really want to be involved and enjoy the process with them and do it together. Like it's kind of like a family thing for me to share in the experience. I'll just drop them off and say, hey, go do this. And I'll pick you up in 2 hours. And it hopefully gives us something to, in the future that we enjoy together. And it helps us bond as a family as well. So that's why it's important for me to be involved and do it with my girls. And then I want to share that with other girls and boys also in the community to be able to do that. And, I see it as a way to also keep them out of trouble as they get older. I found sports always lock me in to wanting to succeed at something. And, I didn't have time for anything to go off and do wrong things, so much, right? Because I didn't have time to think about what am I going to do with my time.
How was the process for you in the beginning and your starting point? Can you maybe tell me a story when actually you start trying to involve with community? Like what was passed through your head? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, like to have no basketball here on the West Side, I kind of reached out to an organization in Kelowna to see if they could support me. And they the thought process when I asked them was well, we've already tried it, it won't work. And I was like, well, let me have a go. Let me see if I could do it. And I had a lot of supportive friends and we pretty much just spread by word of mouth to get this league out there. And we're very successful in the first year getting a grade 2 and 3s. We managed to get 4 teams on the West Side. And that was the minimum requirement to have a league on the west side was 4 teams, and it's since gone a little bit south where we've only been managed to get 2 teams. So we've had to go and join the Kelowna League, which is unfortunate. So we've been able to practice on the west side, but we have to play games in Kelowna. So I kind of want to get it so, people don't have to travel across the bridge, right? And it succeeded one season and it hasn't come back yet where we've been able to get 4 teams going again. And so then we had to change our ideas on the girls because you can't get enough girls to play. You need like a minimum of 36 players to form a league here on the west side. So that's been a challenge. As I said, we've only got 11. So we're doing an in-house league, which means we play amongst ourselves on a Monday night. And my biggest challenge seems to be so many different organizations of basketball, and I'm not used to that. So when I grew up playing sport in Australia, with the Australian rules football, we'd have a governing body taking care of all the football in Queensland. And I can see there's like maybe 2 to 4 governing bodies of basketball in Kelowna, which is kind of strange to me because I would like it all to be under one governing body to get us all on the same page. So I find that a challenge with basketball in Kelowna. Everyone off doing their own different things, all these different organizations. And I don't think that helps with the growth of the sport here. So it'd be kind of nice to unite all that into one governing body. So maybe that's a challenge I could, take upon to try and get that to happen. But my girls haven't been able to play anybody else in other leagues. I've actually reached out to other leagues in Kelowna and I haven't had too much interest from them, which is strange. If you want to unite, get these girls, young girls at a young age being able to participate against different organizations, and it seemed they're reluctant to do that at the moment. I don't know how to change that script and get those organizations on board, but that's where I'm trying to head. And it takes, more than one person to build this community. And I just feel like, I'm trying to reach out to these other organizations and I'm not getting the love back at the moment for the support. So that's where my challenge lies at the moment with that.
How do you think, how do you see your role as a coach influencing these girls?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, like how far do I want to take this? And as I said, there's no governing body. Like I found like there's no training for me to be a coach. I'm kind of training myself. Like I've had coaching experience at like Australian rules football level. So I'm kind of taking some of those aspects because it's a team sport and trying to, utilize the skill that I've had from a different sport and implement that into basketball. I feel like it'd be good if we had a governing body and then we actually had training and certification to be a coach. Because I know for a fact that in my AFL league back in Queensland, you can get certification to coach.
Okay.
And so that would help me, get these girls to, go better. I'm kind of like going on YouTube and going, what drills can I do, right? And it'd be kind of good if we had like a Canadian basketball program, like laying the foundation, instead of me having to do my own work, get part of a course and learn how to do it that way. So I would like to see that in Canadian basketball. Also, one of our biggest challenges, which I forgot to mention, is actually basketball courts. Getting basketball courts is really hard.
I was going to get to that question though, and a little bit, but I also, just before jumping to that, I went to see you coaching a couple times over there in the court in the school. And I'm a coach too. And I'm a coach of, older players, like they say, their 20s to their 30 though. You want their progress, they want to learn, they want to grow in the sport. But I feel Canadians sensitive. I feel some of the parents sensitive. Do you got any experience with that in basketball?
And as you said, like, I'm passionate about coaching. And I thought to myself, without getting the feedback, was I too hard on the kids? Because I know, as you said, the kids might be a bit sensitive to the way I coach. Maybe I coach too much towards adult, but at the same time, I said to my new squad, like, I'm never going to get mad at you. I'm passionate and don't take me wrong. I'm just trying to encourage you to do a new way and to push you, right? You're not doing anything wrong. We come out here to make mistakes, so we learn. So I'm happy for you to make mistakes. I always make that well known to the players before we start in the first practice, especially to the new players. So so I'm not getting that understanding where people aren't coming back. Maybe they do want to try a new sport and that's legit, but I want to get it where I get half my squad back and, work with those girls and hopefully they keep pursuing it rather than dropping out of the sport.
Yeah. So, let me tell you, like, I was impressive, and that's like, another like level of step. Like, I didn't know you, and I really love the way you were coaching. I think the mentality here when I see the kids is like everybody win, even if they're lost. We don't have the mentality in my country. I learned, and who the way that I am and the discipline that I gained, it was because my coaches and the coaches that were hard on me.
Yeah.
And when I hear you over there in the court and you're like not yelling, but you're indicating orders like you need to run, it's about shooting, passing, and it was like I respect like the girls that got the respect that we're giving you,
Yeah.
and they were doing it though.
Yeah.
And I don't get to see that in other sports here. I feel my perspective is like, from my perspective, like Canadians, they're like a little bit sensitive. Even parents, they don't want you to just even yell or say something though. And my mentality is like, I saw pure passion over there in the court basketball. Even you were holding Presley here with you, and you didn't give up. You keep trying, and I was like, yeah, this man, we need coaches like that. We need, I want my daughter to get into a group like that, into a coaching like that way, right? Because that's the way I usually go and I speak to her. Not in like the way that you're meaning to. It's just sometimes in the way like you need to. This is gonna be create a better, discipline and their thing. They want to be understanding, listening better. And seriously, man, you were doing a really good
Well,
job.
thank you for the compliment there. I really appreciate
I'm
that.
looking forward to go and to another training class that you had, or another rehearsal or practice you have in the
Yeah.
next.
Well, I think like the whole thing with team sport, it isn't about the individual, right? And a lot of it, I see everyone's playing an individual game. So that's where I come with the girls with the passion. I'm trying to get them. It's a team game. It isn't about you. It's about the rest of the team. So that's where my emphasis is on with the girls and anyone, like even when I was coaching the boys, right? We don't want that person, just shooting the basket every single time. It's about getting that pass first and teaching those kids those skills, that it isn't about you individually. It's about the whole collective, the whole group. And that's where my mentality is, why team sport is important for kids to learn. Because I think there's a lot of individualism in the world these days. And that's why I want these kids to come out and learn it. It isn't about me. We have to work together to get this goal to win this game.
And based on this, what do you hope these girls take away from the time they spend on the court? I imagine it has to be you're trying to build more than basketball skills.
Oh, it's about life lessons, like sport, like, implements into the kids, and even just for one example was listening skills. And they were all talking the other night while I'm trying to teach them a drill. And I had to stop them all and say, hey, would you do this for your teacher at school? This is the respect that I need. Same as your school teacher. When you go to school, you need to start listening. Otherwise, I said, I'm coming out here, I'm volunteering all my free time to help you girls out. So all I'm asking is one simple thing, is discipline and respect and mutual respect. And that's what we're trying to implement when we're out there on the basketball court, and, a good skill to learn for life in any aspect of your life, not just team sport.
I know how passionate you are investing in time and those kids, but in terms of facilities or programs, what do you think will make a difference here in West Kelowna?
Well, a community-based court, like a gym, would be good, right? Owned by the city. Like they keep telling us that there's enough courts through the school district. We really have a hard time booking those courts and going to the same court. For example, we're playing 8 games this season. We managed to book a court on the west side for 6 of those times. And the other 2 times we have to go over the bridge because we couldn't get another court in West Kelowna on a Monday night. So yeah, I've had conversations with the mayor about it. They did have a proposal to do a new gymnasium through the city, and then it got squashed. And then I as soon as I saw that it was straight on the email to the mayor going, no, we need this gym, right? And he pretty much said the funds aren't there at the moment, which I understand. But yeah, that's what we do need. We need like a facility that, we can book and have a schedule where we know, parents don't, one of the things that parents ask is, oh, where is it? Where are we going to play? And I was like, well, I can't really tell you. We don't know until we book it through the school district, and it could change. It could be at this facility or this facility. And then that probably a big deterrent for people to sign up, because like, oh, these guys don't know what they're doing. I'll continue to have those conversations with the mayor and send my emails and my thoughts, and, very passionate about, you're not going to grow anything if you don't have the facility, right? So I know heaps of other places, soccer don't have a problem getting a soccer field, right? In Kelowna or West Kelowna. So yeah, and it's been an ongoing problem for a number of years now. I've talked to the Kelowna Minor Basketball Association, and they've already had those conversations with even the Kelowna side and about getting a gym through the city as well, which hasn't even happened for them yet either.
Like you say, we need the support of our parents, more than you don't need to be the only one who's raising their hand here.
Yeah.
Everybody got to pay attention to things like this, because at the end is our kids. We're looking to a better future, and Canada has the infrastructure in other cities. Why not implement it here? But either way,
And that's one thing that I've definitely noticed in Australia is the level of female participation in female sports is on the rise.
mhm,
And as a dad, I would like to see that more here, I mean, I see the girls, they got their dance, they got their gymnastics and all the stuff that's been around for a long time. But basketball is relatively new, I feel, for female participation.
yeah,
And it's only a good thing being part of a team, right? And,
yeah,
and they're not starting that for a young age. We're starting that in probably more middle school and high school, the basketball for the female participation. And there's nothing really going on for the, from, grade 2 to grade,
mhm,
5, which is where I'm really honing in on to try and get them to start earlier. And it builds their confidence too, right?
yeah.
Like to be good at this sport, when they start younger. And if they're starting later in life, their confidence isn't going to be there. So
Do you ever feel like, being an immigrant give you a different view to getting involved with community?
as I said, like I haven't felt a problem trying to get involved in the community. Everyone's really accepting in Canada. With immigrants here, I feel like it's fairly good, probably better. Obviously there's probably that racism aspect with some Australians, not all Australians.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that's a lot less here, and I do hear that from immigrants. They
Mhm.
actually people that speak to me here going, "Oh, it's probably chose Canada over Australia because I heard it's a little bit racist there, a little bit." And I've had those conversations with other immigrants. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I want to ask you, what do you find, or what are you trying to accomplish here and yourself and your persona and your spirit, though, doing all this type
Well,
of things, like being a dad, looking the best for your kids, and not only your kids, but for the rest of the community kids.
yeah. Well, obviously coming from here with the challenges, it's self-growth, right? Because you get comfortable, right? You're in your own, atmosphere back in Australia where you grew up and you just know everything and how the system is. And then, you kind of lose a little bit of that confidence coming here because you got to learn it all. So even for me, just knowing how things are, and I've come accustomed to them now. There's little things that are always going to irritate me about Canada. That's just natural. I'm just going, wish it was a bit more like this here in Canada, like Australia, but that's never going to be the case. I'd like to take the good aspects of Australia and bring them to Canada and the good Canadian aspects and bring them to Australia. And then I always say we'll have the perfect country. But you just learn to grow with it because that's the way it is, right? And you just got to start to, let go of things and be more acceptant of things. And that's the big challenge when you come from another country. You just got to put away some of your old ways and embrace the new ways. And that's hard. That's hard for everyone. It's hard for you, hard for me to do that. So, and once you accept that acceptance and this is the way it is here, and then you can just start moving on with your life and know how to move forward a lot easier and not dwell on all of those negative things, right? Because if you're going to dwell on those negative things, you're going to be back on the plane going back to your own country tomorrow, right? So
That's right. That's
yeah,
really good point
yeah,
over there. And thank you for sharing that,
yeah.
though. Daniel, this is the question that I ask all my guests here before wrap up things. Does Canada mean for you now, especially for a person like you who is such a good connections with the community?
I have to embrace it at home now. It's like my kids are, grown up the majority of their life here now. So I've got to treat it like home and not think about, hey, Australia is my home and this is where I want to be. As I said, like I married someone Canadian. It wasn't a choice to come over here. We probably did it more for, the kids had more cousins, more family structure here, like more support because I'm an only child. So that was one of the big reasons to come over here. I have that family connection where I didn't have that as much. So wanted them to have, they got 5 or 6 cousins in town, which has been brilliant. And I've never grown up with that. So that was the main reason I come over here so they could grow up with that family structure around them and that support that they can get, which maybe I couldn't offer them, for my Australian side. But my heart's always with Australia, but like it is growing here, feeling more comfortable. And as I said, you get involved in the community, start becoming part of the community. I don't feel like I'm an immigrant as much anymore. I feel like I'm actually a productive member of society here. And I don't even think about having an Australian accent walking down the street now. Like, as I said, this is a small community now. I know lots of people and they know me. And once you get that relationship with people here, And then, you walk to the shops and you see like people in your community, they know you, you get kids going, hey, there's the basketball coach. And so that's really cool. So you start really feeling that you're part of this community here in Canada. So it's the best way. That's what I can say to anyone moving here. The best thing is just get involved and things will happen. Things will happen for you.
If I can summarize that, I really like everything you say. And I will say Canada means family.
Yeah.
And in some type of term. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure to have you here. Honestly, I really appreciate like all the stories and experience that you've been sharing here. Any advice that you have for other parents, they're watching this, or is anything else you want to add?
Yeah. One more thing I want to add is like meeting people like you. If I never left my comfort zone in Australia, I wouldn't have met great people from you, like from Mexico and other different countries, like Mexicans don't tend to go to Australia, right? I haven't met one down there yet. And so, and forming different relationships with people from different cultures, that's been a really great aspect of moving here. I never regret that. So I've got like lifelong friends now that I met from different countries that, come to Canada, which is awesome. And Canadians too, of course, as well. I've met a lot of really cool Canadian people that I'm going to have that lifelong relationship with. And definitely, you look at all the positives, like things like that. You just settle in one place with your own country. You're never going to, it's great to experience life in a different country and get a different perspective. And you never know, might work out for you. And I hope it does for those people who do think, to come to Canada. There's so many opportunities, but it's all about being positive and getting involved, and especially other parents coming here. I do see a lot of people on Canadian Club Brisbane on Facebook. We're talking to other Canadians and Australians about the move from Australia to Canada, vice versa, and a lot of information on there, how to make it better and stuff like that. And then you can, and it is hard. It is really hard if you don't have that support when you move to a new country. It's a very big challenge, but you got to get out in the community, and it's not gonna find you. You got to go find it.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. You're not going to sit around at home. It ain't going to happen for you. You might as well go back to your own country. You really got to make an effort. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Well said, man. Well, I really hope the projects and the plans you got here for facility programs, involve more community, actually become true. And I really want to say thank you, the bottom of my heart, to you for like being this good sample of that, for having you as a friend and a great coach. Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep your passion. And, I got so much to keep learning from you. Thank you for being here at Immigrants Unplugged. My good friend, Daniel. And here's Saul Gomez. We'll see you in the next episode of Immigrants Unplugged.